thank you. I read my comments on my last TikTok video. Dom, thank you, because I do love talking deep doctrine. Like I said, I can only talk it with like my husband and like one other couple in the ward, and like that's it. That's as far as my world extends to on deep doctrine. Because, well, some of my husband's childhood friends that he grew up with, we don't really talk to them anymore. They, grew up, got families of their own, and ditched us. So there goes talking deep doctrine with them. And those are also the people that were like, hey, Rose, deep doctrine, you just don't like. They didn't tell me, you know. I wish they would have told me more about like deep doctrine and personal revelation. And this is something you seek for yourself. But all they just kept saying is, Rose, don't do that. We hear too much of don't do that in this church, and not enough of, well, you probably shouldn't do this, but this is what you can do. Like, and that's my philosophy, because that's also how I raise my children. I don't like telling my children, no, don't all the time, because I want them to make choices for themselves. So I say, well, no, you can't really do this, but here, let's talk about like what you can do and what you should do, and like what you should want to do. Like, I want you to want to do, So it's like, I want you to talk deep doctrine. I want you to get personal revelation, but I want you to do it the right way. Nobody taught me the right way till about 6 or so months ago. And then I started going down this road. So like that's when I flipped my channel from a lot of gaming and a lot of crime talk. Because I'm also going to make another video on why I left the Gypsy Rose community. But let's get on to this. I bullet pointed this. This isn't scripted, but I had to bullet point so I can get some facts straight. I want to get facts straight in this video. So here we go. Let's get these facts straight. So Ward Radio, I think it was talking about, did Jospeh Smith do this for the money? And one thing we forget to think about is, what was it like 200 years ago? And even before then, because when they were talking about, somebody threw out a stat about 200 years ago, and I did hear about this on my own through research of the Restoration, that when Jospeh Smith talks about the first vision, he talks about how there was a revival in religion at that time. But somebody said that in the 1800s, only 10% of people were actually going to physical churches. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Because I do crime and I do history. I love both of those. And that's why I got my degree in criminal justice. And so when you love crime and you love history, one of the things you love is talking about the Salemn witch trials. They were a big point in our history. So we're going to kind of talk about, how do we get from Salemn to Joseph to now? Because if you know, so when Joseph built Nauvoo, Jospeh Smith was also mayor and everything else, because this was typical and standard from 200 years ago. When the Puritans came over from England and inhabited New England and the New World, the clergymen were the mayors of the town. They were the law. Just like the Catholic Church in England at the time of the Crusades and stuff. I mean, they were above the king until Henry VIII did his thing. Henry VIII put a stop to that. We'll talk about that later. But so I got to thinking, well, how did we get from 100% religious Puritan towns to 200 years later, only 10% of the people going to church? And then 200 years now, again down the road, we're once again absolved in religion. Like, we're like, religion is huge nowadays. Like right now, it is such a fight between atheists and Christians. Yeah, and Jews. We won't forget about you guys out there. You guys are fighting that fight out there. So anyway, so I was like, let's go get some more stats. Because why did these Puritan towns go to 10%? So yes, most settlers were Protestant Catholics and Jews in the 1600s. They came for their religious freedom, because it was getting crazy in England and everything after the Crusades in the 1300s ended, and the 13th century, the 14th. the 1200. They had the big crusades, and then you had a calm down of religion, and then you had the Catholic Church, and then you had Henry VIII come along, and religion's been a crazy battle over there because you could be unalived for your religion in England. So they were like, let's go to New England. Let's go to this new world. Let's build our new towns. And so they built these towns. And I did not know this about our justice system, but this is where we get our just justice system. Well, that is no longer just because every 200 years, it seems that things change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So back in the Salem witch trials, all you had to do is it, and everybody knows, if you didn't like somebody, you're like, witch, 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 witch. And then they got brought into court, and the person sat up there, and they're like, yep, witch. See, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. Ah, they're a witch. And then proof you're a witch. Then they do one of their mini tests, like drown you or whatever, whatever. And so in this time in the 1700s, towards the end of the Salem witch trials, 75 to 80%. See, I told you, 75 to 80% were going to church and were religious because these towns were almost 100% owned by the Puritans, and the clergymen were the ones who owned these towns, and you followed their law. And then somehow colonists, okay, so basically what happened in the late 1700s towards the Revolutionary War, see, in 1717, the Freemasons had a big deal happen to them. They had lodges, like 4 different lodges and stuff around England, and a few lodges here and there around Europe. And in 1717, they built their very first Grand Lodge. And that kicked off a big thing for the Freemasons because more people finally started picking up Masonry. And this religion has been around for so long. It's one of those old ones too. And so our founding fathers, they come from this big thing. So they start flooding over in the 1700s, and they're all Freemasons. And these Freemasons don't go to church on Sunday. They it's like Freemasonry is kind of not really, it is a religion, yes and no. Like Freemasonry is kind of like a bro club, kind of thing. And but it is a religion too at the same time. Like it's kind of interesting. Freemasonry is interesting. I need to look further into this. But so they have a big deal happen. And so 90% of the colonists that are coming over in the 1700s, they're Freemasons or not religious at all, but they're coming for that new world. And so this drowns out that 80% of Puritans, and these Puritans feel so bad after these witch trials. I might have to start this video again because I only get 10 minutes on here, and I'm almost to my 10 minutes because we need to get into part 2 about where our justice system went, because what these people did lived with them forever. The Puritans felt so guilty they ultimately did end up admitting all the innocent people they unalived. Actually, I'm trying to find it again. My mom saw it once briefly in our history that somewhere on my mom's side, somebody ran. They got accused of being a witch, and they ran, and they lived. Thank God, because now I'm here. But I mean, it was bad. If you couldn't run, like you got lucky if you ran and didn't get caught. But anyways, let me start part 2. So I'll be back. This is part 1. I'll come back with part 2. Let's talk about our justice system and how we get to Jospeh Smith. So BRB. Okay. Okay. From to Jospeh Smith, part 1. Sorry, give me a second. I'm hashtagging this and stuff, and I gotta do my hashtag. Oh, like I wish they would. Like you can go live on. You can go live on. And then, oops, one more hashtag. Give me one more hashtag. Faith. Gotta have faith. Just kidding. Okay, here we go. And then we'll start up part 2. Okay, let's go with part 2. Okay, there we go. Let's go with part 2. Okay, welcome back to part 2. Let's get into our justice system. So these Puritans felt so guilty. This is where we get our what was supposed to be our wonderful justice system, because they had to change everything from what they did to these people. So this is where we get the right to cross-examine, because in the witch trials, you brought somebody up on the stand, a witness, and they just said, prove it. And then they said, oh, I got a headache. Oh, I'm going to pass out. And then it was proven. And there wasn't a lawyer for the other side. And so now they're like, okay, the other side needs representation. They have a right to be like, could your headache be like last week you were like, got kicked in the head by a cow, you know? Oh yeah, I forgot I got kicked in the head by a cow. Sorry, I was looking at them while I got kicked in the head by the cow. So I immediately thought that they're a witch and they made the cow kick me. You know, but then that testimony would do no good unless you had a jury, which is something they didn't really have, because in the Puritan times you had the clergymen who stood as the jury, and they weren't very kind and they weren't unbiased. So our second thing we get is we get a fair judge and an impartial jury. So right now, when you go to court right now today, you have 3 choices when you enter into the court system. Plea deal, which is like 99.9% everybody's fave. We'll go into that later. I hate plea deals, by the way. 2, you can have the judge, a fair judge, say, hey, judge, I just want to stand in front of you. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to play out court, but you're my jury. Or 3, you can go for an official full jury and say, nope, I'm going full trial. I want a full jury of my peers, my regular peeps. And this is why I think people need to quit complaining about jury, because you guys are very important, by the way. Jury, you guys are hugely important. And I actually have experience in this, and I'll tell you why in another video. I got so many videos I can make for you guys. Okay. And let's see. Cross-examination is okay. Exclude hearsay, which is important. Number 3 is excluding hearsay. You can't say, well, she told me while we were out in the forest the other day that she was out here in the middle of the night and she saw her dancing schmaken. And so I didn't see them dancing, but she told me they did. Well, this is my best friend and I believe her. Well, no more of that. No more of gossiping and putting gossip in court, which was great. And number 4, one of the biggest things, and we've lost this today, and this is really important, and we've lost this today, is the presumption of innocence. Because when you went in the courtroom 400 years ago, back in the 1600s, if somebody said you were a witch, nobody was unbiased. They automatically believed it. It was just about getting you to admit you're a witch. And they pressed you, literally sometimes, to say, yeah, you're a witch. So, big deal is now when you go to court, you're supposed to be innocent until somebody can prove you guilty. This happened in Jospeh Smith's time. I love Jospeh Smith's time because the court systems in Jospeh Smith's time were fair. But now we're here in a corrupt government. We can make like 50 videos on this corrupt government we're in right now and how it also matches to Book of Mormon times. Because we are in Book of Mormon times right now. Me and my husband were just talking about it last night, how the Coriantumr, was it? Coriantumr? The three sons? Huh. And he smashed the third one up against the wall. Book of Mormon is pretty wild. But that's indicative of the Antichrist killing the third eagle head. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about it later. But if you don't, get into some deep doctrine. Just kidding. So anyways, so we got these Salemn times. Everybody's religious. And then the crash happens. A bunch of Freemasons come in. Freemasons or non-religious people. And they're like, forget religion. We got this brotherhood going on. And this brotherhood wants to make a country where we're all free and, no more. And the Puritans also, they were tired of, they were so upset at what they did at these witch trials. They were so guilty of this that they built better court systems, and their clergymen lost their power. They were no longer over the towns anymore. They started getting real mayors. They started getting real. And so it actually, the Salemn, sometimes bad things in history lead to good things in history. And so, yes, let's see, did I forget anything? Yeah, see, it says they saw a shift from intense fervor and strict theocracy, which led to a decline in power that the clergy had. Because when the clergy has all this power, they're kind of almost like a king or a dictator. Because when you have a dictator, like Mr. H there in Germany, they want you gone, you're gone. You're gone. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, so basically in 1682, 1683, we have these witch trials. Feel really bad. So basically, when we get back to Jospeh Smith's time, and we've dropped down to 10% is going to church, but there is enough churches around for 90% of the population to be religious. There is a plethora of people going to church. There's just this plethora. Like, and so you're thinking, well, if Jospeh Smith wanted to make money at this, well, going up against 100 preachers, traveling preachers, static preachers, like they had church building, they had plenty of church buildings. There was church buildings everywhere. There was preachers in those church buildings. There was Methodists, Presbyterians, Catholics, Jews. There was everything. And Jospeh Smith even talks about how there was even Freemasons still there. I mean, let's see, because Jospeh Smith, so in the first 50 years of America, we had so much religious freedom. People would just, I want to be Presbyterian one day. I want to be, Methodist one day. You could do it. You could go from. Why did this stop? Where did this stop at? Crap. I don't know where this stopped at. Oh, crap. Oh, gosh. Do I got to redo part 2 again? Why did it stop? Okay. Oh, gosh darn it. TikTok is pissing me off. Oh, gosh. TikTok is like really pissing me off today. Because now we got to go get back into it. I'm like, I don't know how long it's been stopped for, and I was like, wait a second, it's been on 3 minutes for a very long time. Now I think we got to go through it again. I put it on 10 minutes. Okay, I guess I got to redo this one. So everybody, I don't know, on YouTube is going to hear this again. I don't know. I hate when I have to repeat things because I have to repeat things in the same way I did it before. Now you guys are all going to be all weird over here. Fast forward through this. I'm like, should I pause in stream? I don't know. This is why sometimes I should clip and cut. Anyways, we're talking about the Salem witch trials and where we went from here. So we had some really important things happen because the Puritans felt really guilty for what they did. So the guilt sets in, and they say we need to get a better justice system. And so we're going to hit 4 bullet points of the justice system that got built off of this. So one is you have the right to jury, or you have a right to either a fair judge or an impartial jury. And nowadays we add in plea deals, but like, so when you go to court today, you get to choose between a plea deal or, and we'll go into that later because I hate plea deals. And 2, you get gosh darn it. Okay, you can say, hey judge, I just want to face you. You are my judge and jury. And so whatever you say, we're gonna put on the whole show in front of you, and whatever you say goes. Or 3, you do it in front of a jury, full-blown jury. You say, I want my right to jury trial, and you go get your right to jury trial. And you perform in front of the jury trial. So that's one thing that the Puritans changed because they felt so guilty. 2 is the right to cross-examine. Because back then, instead of cross-examining, meaning they would just go and they would say to you, they would be like, prove this person's a witch. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, I got a headache. And it's caused by them. It's so caused by them. You're like, I saw them when I got the headache. And they're like, proof. Okay, she saw that person, she got the headache. But now they have a right to a lawyer and to be cross-examined and say, what were you doing when you got that headache? They're like, well, I was out there milking the cow, and I looked up and I saw them, got kicked in the head by the cow. And I thought, well, they must be a witch because they made the cow kick me. The cow couldn't have just like kicked me because maybe I pinched it while looking up at them and ow. No, it has to be they're a witch, you know. She looked at my husband wrong, and I'm accusing her of being a witch. Just kidding. She batted her eyes at my husband. No. And so now you have the right to cross-examine and third degree somebody, and hostile witness. People also like talk about that, like, we'll make you a hostile witness if you don't do what we want you to do. But anyways, we can go into that later too. Okay, and number 3 is exclude hearsay. So there was no more, well, I went into the woods with Beth here, and Beth told me that last night she saw everybody dancing sneaky in the woods. And so, like, I heard it from her, so I totally believe this. And they're like, Kate, no more of this, no more of this. You heard it from Beth. Either you saw it or you didn't see it. Either you're a technical witness or you didn't see it. And so exclude hearsay, real testimony. Either you saw it or you didn't see it, or either it happened to you or it didn't happen to you. But you don't get to come up and say, well, somebody told me it happened. And one of the most important things, I think, and we've lost this today, which is the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Right now, if you get charges, the public thinks you're guilty immediately. You're guilty. And so I hate this part of our justice system because we've lost the presumption of innocence. This is why I also hate plea deals. Because we've lost the presumption of innocence, a judge and cops and everybody, in their minds, and this is a no joke, if you come to their courtroom, if you're standing in their courtroom, you obviously did something wrong. Therefore, you deserve some sort of punishment. And so their favorite thing is plea deals because both sides win on a plea deal. And so everybody, it's a win-win for the judge, for the prosecutor, for the defense, for you. It's all just a win-win-win situation all the way around. Like I said, I can make long videos about this later. So anyways, how did we go from this time to Jospeh Smith? So we have in the 1700s, like I said, Freemasonry in the early 1700s started making headways. Our founding fathers came over and they were either not religious or Freemasons, and they're like, man, we're all this brotherhood and we all want the same thing. And Boston Tea Party happens and all this, and they band together like the brotherhood that they are. And so we got 90% flooding over from the old world to the new world, and they're not religious. And so we drowned out from 75 to 80% after the Salem witch trials. People start, it says, because of the backlash and public remorse, religion in New England saw a shift from intense fervor and strict theocracy led to a decline in power of the clergy. So the clergy lost power. These Puritan clergymen lost power over their towns. We made a fair justice system, and it went from 75 to 80% down to 10% as all these Freemasons, because the Salem witch trials happened in 1682 to 1683. By 1717, the Freemasons were making headway and then coming over to the New World. So just in a matter of 50 years, we go from 80% down to 10%. We get our founding fathers. We have our Revolutionary War. We revamp this country, one nation under God, even though only 10% of us go to church. But sure. So Jospeh Smith's time, was this lucrative? When we have 10% is going to church, most people, they're spending time on their farms and everything. They're busy with their trade and their skills, blacksmithing, farming, whatnot. They're not worried about church and their salvation. And there's enough churches in Jospeh Smith's time to hold 90% of the population for it to go back up to 70, 85, 80%. So when Jospeh Smith gets those plates and starts restoring the church, there's Protestants, there's Methodists, there's Catholics, there's Jews, there's Freemasons, there's so many things, and we're not even utilizing our there's traveling clergymen, because we're not even utilizing what we have in our towns, and these men are traveling and they're not even making hardly any money at it. People aren't really making money as preachers, but we're finding a new love for Christ because everybody is craving Christ once again. And there are people that came to the Mormon church that said, well, I was told by God that there will be a church soon that will follow the New Testament. And there were people that were waiting for a new religion to come about that followed what Christ literally taught in the New Testament. And then here comes Jospeh Smith. But I've been reading Jospeh Smith, Brigham Young, John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, Wilford Woodruff. And in John Taylor's book, it talked about that the church did not get out of debt and finally start making a profit till John Taylor's time. While John Taylor was in hiding because of the polygamy. We'll get into that later. But anyways, my 10 minutes almost up on here. My phone's about to die and I gotta go plug it in. But tell me what you think, part 1, part 2. So I don't think it was very lucrative for Jospeh Smith. When you look at the facts, I don't think it was very lucrative Like, you're crazy to want to make money, and he didn't make money. Like, he didn't live in these church buildings and everything, and like, they shared their houses. And Joseph Smith, we can go into this later because we'll go into this later. I'm almost out of it. But anyways, love you guys tons there on TikTok. We'll go into this later. I hope you guys like these part ones and part twos. Tell me what you think. Ah, gosh, I hate like redoing this. Okay. From Salemn to Jospeh Smith, Purdue. Just kidding, Purdue. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. See, when I hashtag my last hashtags, everything is like there for you. Okay, give me a second. I gotta go get. I don't know if you guys want me to continue over here, but I mean, pretty much. I hate that I'm kind of limited unless I go live on. Okay, give me a second. I gotta go get my charger. I thought I had charged my phone up last night, and I thought, but I didn't. It's okay. I just need to replug it back in, and ta-da! This power strip I bought from Amazon, it like feels like a couple of the outlets don't work anymore. I need to get one of those magnetic thing that holds my phone because all I have is this. And see, when I'm charging, like there's no way to really put it in there. It's like, how do I stand it up when it's charging? I don't know because that's how I do TikTok is on my phone. I do YouTube unless I'm downstairs cooking. I do YouTube on my phone if I'm downstairs cooking. But if I'm upstairs, I TikTok over here. I I have quite the setup, but it's not as good as other people. Not as good as Word Radio. Just kidding. But I do my best to run the best that I can. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think. Was it lucrative in his time? Was it a lucrative business? I don't think so. I think when you have 80% of the population not wanting to be religious, and look how upset Martin Harris was when he couldn't recoup the money from he spent what $3,000 on the Book of Mormon. I forgot to open up chat. Good thing nobody's chatted, but I wish people would chat. Just kidding. I know I'm not just kidding. I want to chat with people. That's why I love streaming. Is I'm not up here to stream to be like, look at me, I'm showing off. I got all this knowledge. I'm great. I'm wonderful. Do everything I say. Worship me. It's because I love working with people. That's why I got my degree in criminal justice and psychology. But when I was a sophomore in college, um, I couldn't. I was in my second marriage. I couldn't get pregnant, and I thought we couldn't have kids. I thought that there was too much going on between me and my husband. We couldn't have kids, and then magically I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was all fine and dandy. And I kept going to school through being a mother, a stay-at-home mom. But my husband was supporting me, and he would like sit outside my classroom, or my two older boys would, and they would watch my daughter while I went to class. My husband sometimes would sit in the back of class. Like when I was in labor, I was in my finals week. It was kind of funny because the teacher, 2 weeks later, I show up to class and I have the flu and I had a baby 2 weeks ago. And I'm half out of it in class. And my teacher's like, Rose, are you okay? Do you need to like go home? I told her, no, I'm fine. I'm sick. I said, I'm just not feeling well. I'm really sick. I'm not feeling well. I said, but I can do this. And she looks at me and she says, Rose, you just had a baby and you pick I'm sick? She goes, I would take I had a baby as an excuse for you doing so poorly today, but no, I'm sick. She's like, you just had a baby. And I'm just like, well, I had a baby and I'm fine. I got the flu. It's like, I'm not feeling well. It's like, I'm being honest with you. It's like, it's not that, it's like, my husband's back there taking care of the baby. Oh, I'm fine. But yeah, like, while I was like, we were afraid I'd go into labor while I was at school. And so my husband would drive me to school and he'd sit in the back of the class in case my contractions got harder, that I just up and leave class and go straight to the hospital. And so it's kind of funny because, yeah. But then when my daughter was 5 months old, she had a problem with breast. I couldn't breastfeed her, and I wanted to go to a year. I wanted to push it to a year. I only did 6 months on my two older boys, and I wanted to be the mom that went the distance at least 1 year. But she had a really sensitive stomach, and so I didn't know I could get pregnant like that. And there was my son. By the time my daughter was 6 months old, I was pregnant again. And this time I was taking some photography courses as because I'm also an artist. I do art photography. I draw. I do art photography. I sew. I have a few talents that I do. And so for some elective courses, I didn't fill them all with psychology. I did want to do a couple of photography and painting classes because I wanted to learn, and I'm glad I did. I did interior design, painting, and photography, and guess what? All three of those play into each other. They all work off the color wheel, and I learned a lot about the color wheel at that time. But I got so overwhelmed in painting classes. How I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't stand the smell of the fish oil in the paints, and I went home and I found out I was pregnant, and my whole world just flipped upside down because I couldn't get pregnant for 7 years, and here I got two babies back to back. And I felt a little down and depressed, and I felt overwhelmed by I was in my second photography course. I had passed my first photography course, and that wasn't easy. And I did film class, and with Tip Boxell, he starred in a couple of movies with a couple famous people. You can look him up on IMDb. He was my teacher, Tip Boxell. He's not that popular, but he starred in a couple of movies. I think one was right beside what's his name? Can't remember. I'll have to look it up myself. But anyways, I took some photography classes. I did some backroom work, which was fun, doing regular cameras but I got so overwhelmed I stopped school for a while. Then I went back. I received my associate's degree, and I went back. And then I ran out of funding. Because I had screwed around and paid for some photography courses that I probably shouldn't have. I should have stuck with psychology and whatnot. I ran out of funding and I had 4 classes left to go. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm 4 classes away from my bachelor's degree. I'm out of funding. I need like $3,000 to finish my degree. So I have an associate's, which I'm glad they lauded me the associates, because they said, Rose, do you want to stop at associates and then go on to bachelor's, or do you want to just straight on to bachelor's? And I said, I'm stopping at associates. We're gonna pull over, grab the associates, get back on the road, and get going. And I'm glad I did that, because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't at least have that certificate garnered. I would have the credits garnered, but not the certificate. But I was like, no, we're stopping at associates. Oh, and so wrap this all around. I ended up being a stay-at-home mom of 3 more kids. In a course of 5 years, I had 3 kids, 2 surgeries, and hit my 30s. Hit some heavy depression, all kinds of stuff. Tried streaming psychology 10 years ago. I did okay. I mean, I garnered 500 people. Not bad. I mean, to me, 500 is a lot. And then I just, my life went even more downhill. I made videos about that when I first started back up 3 years, 2.5 years ago, about the fight I got in with my in laws and stuff, and where all that led to. And that led to drug rehab and all this, and like 3 years of psychotic craziness. And then I got back on my feet, and here I am. I came back to streaming because I was depressed at the end of 2022. I realized that I was hating my life, and I wanted to go back to a time when I felt like I had meaning. And I used to specialize in Myers-Briggs. I knew everything about Myers-Briggs. I studied it day and night, ate that stuff up. And that's why I started streaming 10 years ago. I was in chat rooms, and it was getting aggravating in chat rooms trying to tell people, you're not an INTJ. Quit saying you're an INTJ just because it's cool to be an INTJ. Quit saying it. It's like, you guys are just picking it out because it's cool. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And so I was like, I'm making my own channel, and I'm going to tell you guys all how you're not INTJs. I'm going to tell you ISFJs how you're annoying and I can't stand you. And I'm going to explain to people what an ESFJ is. And I want to help other people with their personality types come into their person that they are. Unless you're an ISFJ, just go away. Just kidding. ISFJs hate me because I made so many bad videos on them. They're like, I hate you, Rose. You're saying true stuff, but I still hate you for it. And I'm like, those are some of my best comments when people are like, Rose, that was mean. It was true, but it was mean. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but ISFJs are a high percentage in this world, and you guys are dramatic, and you're a lot like us ESFJs, but you're a little bit on the selfish side, and you upset me. And so I started making videos about it, and I love it when people are like, Rose, I'm just going to hold this against you forever. And I'm like, yeah, because you're an ISFJ. Exactly. You just made my video true. Thank you for that comment. You made my video true. Because they're like, ooh, I'm going to hold a grudge against you forever because you said this about me. And it's like, ISFJ. But anyways, yeah. So here I am. But because of my current life situation, I have turned heavily to religion and deep doctrine in a way I've never known to. And that has now enveloped my world, but I still love crime and psychology and everything else. And I still love crime and psychology and everything else. Gosh, my phone, stupid phone. I hate it when it's on the charger, like I said. And so I still have all my passions. I'm just trying to roll them all into one now, which the YouTube algorithm doesn't know what to do with me because I'm rolling my passions all into one, and it's like, Rose, you're driving me insane. See, this is why people hate trad wives. Who cuts a watermelon looking like a flamingo, a pink flamingo? Like, seriously. This is why people are hating trad wives. Guys, you don't have to dress like that. See, this is how trad wives dress in real life. See, this is my like 80s outfit. I like my 80s outfit because this is kind of like an 80s shirt. You got the little, see, you got the little low cut there. I have to to make it modest, I have to put a tank top on under, and then I wear it with my pink pants. My pink pants. That's what a trad wife wears. For real. No, for real. Yeah. Okay. I gotta double check and make sure my videos are uploading. Okay. Number 1 is uploaded. Number 2 is uploading. 19 people have watched me already. Yay. Okay. So that's kind of like, I don't know, little more than a Reader's Digest version of what's going on with me. So basically, I'm here because I love to talk to people, I love to chat with people, I love to just help people. My community is to help people and be there for people, um and just, so because I didn't get I didn't finish my degree and go after. I didn't really want to be a counselor though. I was like so confused in college because that's why I majored criminal justice and minored psychology, because I was told never to major psychology because then you get boxed in. And I've been a CASA volunteer, and I've been in the court systems. I've been on every table. I've been on the prosecution table. I've been on the guardian ad litem table. I've been on the defense table. I've been in family court, criminal court, not civil court yet. Maybe. Okay, maybe I haven't been in civil court yet, but I've been in the courtroom for all kinds of reasons, and I know a lot about our justice system. I also know our schools are jacked up because, like, one thing I loved about becoming a streamer is because streamers are informational when we do our research. Because, like, so when I was in college, they presented two options to us that we had to write a paper on. And those two options were private prisons versus public prisons. And this was back in 2010 ish. The internet was around in 2010, but we didn't rely on it like we do now, like 15 years later. I mean, our reliance on the internet and information on the internet, like, everybody's getting mad because nobody's getting satellite dish or cable TV or anything anymore, because we get our news and we get everything. We are our news, okay? YouTube is our TV shows, our news. We entertain ourselves now, because, like, getting into Hollywood is hard. Making your own YouTube channel and going viral is easier than trying to get somebody in the movies to recognize you and you be like the next Jennifer Lawrence or Robert Downey Jr. or something. Like, to be the next Scarlett Johansson, because we all want to be Black Widow. You know, like, even those famous people have to fight for their spot. But you can make a YouTube video, you can sing, you can dance, you can be informational. You could do whatever you want on YouTube, and we entertain ourselves now. And where is it going with this? But yeah, so we entertain ourselves. And so they were saying, so when they told us the difference between private and public prisons, and they made private prisons look so great. Like, the point of prisons, especially if you're not in there for life, even if you're in there for life, is still recidivism. They want you to go in those prisons and come out better, so that when you get out in 5 years, you become a regular human being. So their job is, let's get these people better. Let's, get them back to being a normal citizen. So we're going to get them a job. We're going to do this for them. We're going to do that for them. We're going to let them go to school. We're going to let them get their GED. We're going to let them go to college. I mean, you can go to college in prison. People have gotten law degrees in prison. Come out being lawyers. Woo. So, they made private prisons look amazing. And then they said, go write a paper, guys, on private prisons, and do you prefer them, yes or no? Should Utah? So the basis, let me give you the base of what a private prison is. So Utah can make a prison, say in like Arizona or Texas, and they can ship people from Utah prisons out to Texas. And that prison follows Utah law, not Texas law, Utah law. It's run by Utah people and it's Utah law, but it's in another state, but that's okay. That's the point of private prisons, is for the states to not have to keep using their land for prisons. They can build them in other states. And they're also owned like Walmart and Ford, and they're owned by a board of people that have shares in the prisons, because a public prison is run off of tax dollars. A private prison is run off the money of rich people. They invest in this. So you think, oh, this isn't bad. We could put a prison in another state. It still runs by our laws. It's run by a team of people that have shares in it, that have money, that are invested in making people better. They're releasing people for the day and letting them get jobs, and they come home and they sleep at the prison at night. True recidivism. You're like going, yeah. Go private prisons. So yeah, I wrote this paper saying how amazing this is. And then years go by. I become a streamer again. I catch on to, because I'm in the crime community, I catch on to Bailey Sarian, which I cannot show her videos because every time I show her video, my videos get dinged for stealing content. So you're going to have to go look this up on your own, because I am not promoting her anymore, technically, because she keeps dinging my videos. Every time I show her and say, hey, you guys, look at Bailey Sarian, she's amazing, she's awesome, go look at her, I get dinged. So anyways, she does this video on private prisons. And she went down that rabbit hole that I never went down, that I should have went down. Even though it was 2010, I should have tried to go down that rabbit hole. I didn't know. Well, guess what? Private prisons are literal slavery nowadays. It was built on the back of slavery. And I was sitting there watching Bailey's video going, wait. We're in 2023. You're telling me there's no update that these prisons have gotten better? I'm like waiting for her to say, but now in 2023, these prisons function like this. And she never does. And I'm sitting here going, did I write a paper in favor of slavery? These CEOs, these boards are enslaving people just because they hit prison? I mean, just because you're in prison, first of all, doesn't mean you're guilty. Second of all, just because you're in prison doesn't mean you lose your humanity. Like, you're still a human being. You just did something wrong. But, yeah, whatever. So anyways, I find out that I wish I'd gone down that rabbit hole. I wish I'd wrote a totally, because I remember way back in junior high, before the internet, I was around before the internet. So back when I was in junior high in the 90s, I mean, we had one home computer and it sat in my mom's room, and like we had Ask Jeeves, not Google. But my parents had bought a set of encyclopedias from like the 70s. So I grew up with a set of encyclopedias. Most families didn't, but like back then they had door-to-door salesmen that sold like vacuums and encyclopedias and pots and pans and makeup and all of this stuff. When door-to-door salesmen were really popular in the 1800s and 1900s. And so my parents had this set of encyclopedias. And this taught me a lesson, and I guess I didn't learn hard enough because I didn't do this later on when we had the internet and this was easier to do. But I came to my mom one day and I said, hey, we got this assignment in class today. And the assignment is, they told us that America broke off from England. We did the Revolutionary War thing and we became America. However, I gotta tell my husband about this. This will be an interesting conversation with him. Okay, so however, we were told, and I never knew this until this day, that Australia and Canada were kind of like the US. They people came from Europe and inhabited them, but they didn't have a Revolutionary War. They stayed recognizing the Queen, but they didn't need a Revolutionary War to kind of break off on their own and have their own government. Like, they still recognize the Queen, and they're still kind of under English rule, but they didn't break off like the United States. And so they said, write a paper and tell me if you think that the United States shouldn't have broke off, because we would be like Australia and Canada. And I went home and told my mom, and she handed me the encyclopedia. And she said, look up Australia and Canada. Because I was about to be like, oh yeah, we shouldn't have, like, I was going to answer it like everybody else, because the teacher made you think, oh, maybe it was a bad idea that we broke off. Like, we could be like Canada and Australia right now. Like, we could be under English rule and be okay. Like, it turns out it's not a bad thing. Like, did we overreact in the 1700s? And then my mom was like, here, have an encyclopedia. Look up Canada, look up Australia, and tell me what you think, and come back to me after you write your paper. And so I was actually one of the only people that were like, no, it was a good thing we broke off. Like, we needed to, like, because here's what's going on with Canada and Australia, it turns out. And it's like, I can't remember the whole memory, but I just remember my mom opening my eyes about research, saying, just don't follow just because the teacher says it. Like, pick up an encyclopedia. But these are from the 70s, so. But they were still valid. And so now we don't need encyclopedias, because we got an encyclopedia online. We've got the Urban Dictionary, which I love. I love that Urban Dictionary. And I always like to look things up in the Urban Dictionary. I think it follows Nephi's saying of we delight in plainness. Yeah, we do. Bring it on. Bring on the Urban Dictionary, because I delight in plainness too. I don't want to get your Webster version of what the word means. I want to get Urban Dictionaries. I want to know what Urban Dictionary has to say, because Urban Dictionary is honest. It's plain and it's honest. And that's what matters. So my mom opened my eyes by being like, Rose, go look at Canada and Australia. Actually look them up. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll go see, because it's like, okay. I didn't know that Canada and Australia at that time was still under English rule. I mean, we always see them as their own individual countries with their own prime ministers and everything, and their own laws. I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that nowadays England doesn't even recognize. They recognize the royal family, but the royal family's not in charge anymore. Like, they killed that over too. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I guess America really crushed England, and England had like a little bit of a drowning when everybody's like, well, if America broke off from a king, maybe we can. The time of kings is over. It's the time of democracy or dictatorship or Marxism, communism. We're floating this line between communism and I wonder if that, oh my gosh, that makes me, every time I look back on my memories, we know that the deep state started in 1930. And now when I look back on my memories and I see things differently, and I sit there and I think, the signs were there. I'm actually going to start this new episode series. But I got to look up something in the Book of Mormon real quick, because I got to figure out what to name it. Like, I want to actually do episodes. So instead of just coming on here and bringing up a title, I want to do episodes. So Anyways, I want to do episodes, and I'm going to go back in time and see how long the deep state has been there and trying to groom us. So look for that series coming maybe tomorrow. If I gotta go look up a story real quick in the Book of Mormon, because somebody said something in church yesterday that really rang a bell with me that I gotta go research real quick, because I don't just listen to people. I do my own research. That's how you get personal revelation and stuff. You go do your own research, get personal revelation. So anyways, maybe I'll cut this video. It has been an hour. I've done a lot of talking, but tell me what you think. I don't think it was very lucrative for Jospeh Smith. I don't think it was a good business deal, So I think things show that. I think things do show that. If he wanted to make money back then, he probably would have had a better. If he really did dive himself into treasure hunting, he probably would have had a more lucrative swindling people in treasure hunting than coming up with another religion. And I was actually talking to my husband yesterday on the way home from church. I realized that the Book of Mormon says another testament of Jesus Christ. Another. Not the testament of Jesus Christ, not a testament of Jesus Christ, not the book of Christ, not the book of Christ, not. It's the Book of Mormon, which is another. So it's putting itself next to the Bible. It's not putting itself above the Bible. It's not in place of the Bible. It doesn't drop the Bible off the face of the earth. It's another. Another. And you're going, oh my gosh, how humble is that Book of Mormon? Because it's naming itself another testament. Not the testament, not a testament, another testament. Another alongside the Bible. So let that sink in. I'll leave that as the end thought of my video. You guys stay safe, stay lovely, stay warm, stay healthy, stay good, and stay spiritual. And I will be